Hello guys, welcome back to the Beastie Room. Now, we were in here doing a little bit of maintenance today and we came across our sand spiders. Now, these are the Sicarius thomisoides. These are from Africa. Now, we've shown these once or twice, but only briefly. We've not really done a great deal with them. And one of the reasons being is because it's funny, actually, they're a very, very popular spider. Everyone wants to see them, but there's not an awful lot we can do with them as such. Even in terms of enclosures and stuff, they have such basic needs that, yeah, I mean, they're boring enclosures. Let's be honest. They are boring enclosures. It is literally a pot of sand. Now, even if we was to give them a fancy enclosure, it still wouldn't make any difference. These guys, in the natural state, they live in scrublands, arid, deserty areas, and all they do is literally just seal themselves. They literally bury themselves, as we can see here. They just bury themselves in the sand, and this is where they stay. They don't move. They don't do anything, and as you can see there, he's completely covered up. And what they rely on is for prey to come to them. And they literally, I mean, this one here, he's sort of like, he's well covered in as well. And you can tell which way they're facing by the angle of the leg. So if we look here, we can see the leg goes this way. So this spider is facing that way. Yeah? So you can see it. And the same with this one. You notice how the legs are angled around? So they are actually pointing in the direction that the spider is facing. Many people think they're facing the other way, but they're not. They're actually facing this way. And these legs here, these are what they're going to grab their prey with. Now, so what they do is they literally sit like this, and they can sit like this for weeks or months at a time. And one of the problems of keeping these in captivity is overfeeding them. We give them far too much. So really, the care of these guys, you could almost class as abuse compared to other spiders that we keep in the hobby. You know, all our other spiders, they require, you know, a fairly constant fresh water supply and reasonably constant food. So, you know, with us here in the Beastie Room, we let our spiders tell us when they're hungry. So when they're out and about and we see them on the move, we feed them. If they're staying hidden away, we don't bother feeding them. So we allow them to tell us when they're hungry. And this works out really, really well. It also means that sometimes a spider can go for 4 to 6 weeks without food, and then it will come out and it will start hunting for food again. We'll feed it. It might come out again the following day and we might feed it again. Then it might just disappear again for another 4 to 6 weeks. So it's all dependent. They're all individuals and they all have a different rate in which they digest their food, even down to species. Some species are really hungry all the time. Other species, like these guys, we probably feed these on average maybe 3 or 4 times a year. You know, if we're feeding them more than that, it's quite unusual. And what we tend to do is we feed them quite small items as well. So by giving them smaller items, it means that we can feed a little bit more often. But we don't want to be overdoing it. And we will see. I mean, these guys have got their abdomens covered up at the moment. But we've got some little roaches here. And we will pop them in. And we will see what they do. Now, one of the things that excites people with these spiders is the reputation they have for having a really, really serious venom. And there has been, you know, many people think that these spiders should be on the DWA, which is the Dangerous Wild Animals License. As they stand at the moment, they are not. So we can legally keep them within the hobby. That being said, I wouldn't say they're a spider for an absolute beginner. They are insanely fast, very, very fast. And the venom that's delivered by these spiders is very, very similar to rattlesnake venom. And what it does is it actually kills our red blood cells. So it literally destroys them. It also there's a part of the venom which also makes us bleed. So we bleed profusely when we're bitten with this particular venom, when we're attacked by this particular venom, which is something that we get with rattlesnakes a lot. A lot of rattlesnakes carry this, and they've also got a necrotic element to them as well. Now, from what we can find out and what we understand, there's only actually been 2 cases that have been documented from sand spider bites, and one of those apparently pretty much bled to death, and we think, or the literature is stating that that is probably a secondary thing. So this is what we're saying, that it's killing all them red blood cells, it's making us bleed, and they couldn't stop it. And that particular person was said to have died. And the other case that we found was someone where they lost an arm, and that was down to the fact that the necrosis in the venom actually eats the flesh. These guys, the closest relative to these guys is the oh, it's gone clean out of my head. Now the recluses. Cool, it almost went clean off my head then. The recluses. Now, if any of you guys have sort of researched some of these spiders, you'll find that the recluses, again, they're a small spider, very, very small spider, but they have very potent venom. And there's plenty of cases within America of people being bitten by brown recluses and what have you, and they give a nasty, nasty bite, and they often end up with a necrosis in the wound, which is where we tend to suffer as humans. So although we may not die, we might lose a finger or a piece of our finger or something like that if it's not dealt with very quickly. So these guys have been accredited with possibly the worst venom in the spider world. How that is entirely worked out, I'm not 100% sure, because there just isn't really that much information on them. We can compare them to things like the Brazilian wandering spider and stuff like that. Them spiders have actually got antivenoms for their bites. These guys have no antivenom whatsoever. Now, one of the things that I've found through looking after these guys is they are very, very reluctant to actually defend themselves. So what they want to do is they just want to run away and they want to hide. But they're very, very reluctant to do anything else. So what we're going to do now, we're going to pop a cricket in. We'll do one at a time, and hopefully you will get to see the speed that these little guys move. They are very, very fast. Now you might be sort of sitting there thinking to yourself, it's a bit crazy. We've got 2 of them open here. They could just tear out and disappear. They really struggle to climb on this plastic. So we're quite safe. They're quite good. Also, you know, if we were to get a runner on the desk, we can deal with it. It's not a big problem. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to try a little red runner here. We'll pop him in over here. See whether that gains any interest from our spider. Ooh. He missed him. Would you believe it? And as you can see, this one has actually got a fairly good size abdomen. That's a nice size abdomen. Here he goes. Now that has got to be the most pathetic takedown we have seen from a spider in a very long time. That was pathetic. Where's that go? Now, one thing you will see there is how quickly the roach is subdued. by the venom. And what we can do now as well is, while he's busy doing that, we can clean up the remains from some of his previous meals. You notice he's not interested in anything as long as he's got that food. You can get a lovely good close-up look at him now. They really are a very, very interesting spider. Now, they're called the six-eyed sand spider because they have two sets of 3 eyes.
Will he be able to be turned while he's eating?
We can try. We can try. They're very, very susceptible to vibration. That way. So these guys are literally, when we consider our other spiders, where they live in a sensory world. So vibration, air movement, things like that is how our spiders get through their day-to-day lives. Everything is done through vibration. Their eyesight is very, very poor. And these guys are super, super sensitive. And as we were saying earlier on, they can go for months in the wild without feeding. They may only feed once or twice in a year, all dependent on what comes along. Now these are also, there you go, look at that. Yeah, you see a little bit of colour there. Very, very cool. Shall I turn him around a bit? Oh, he's probably going to move himself. Yes, we can have a look at the other one. Let's see if we can get a little bit of food for this one. You can see this one has molted out in the box already. And that hasn't long molted. Look, he's carrying it now. It hasn't long molted out. And the molting process is an interesting one with these guys. We'll take that out. Take that out. Right. Let's find him a suitable volunteer. Here we go. Hopefully this one will move a little bit quicker. Whoa, wow, that was faster. That was much quicker. A little bit more of what we wanted to see. Although he hasn't actually bitten him. I think he's just holding him. Now, you remember when we were saying about when they were hiding? There he goes. There he goes. He's bitten him now. We were saying about how we can detect which way they're facing. Look at the angle of the legs. And now you can see the way the legs are shaped. We can always tell which way our spider is facing. As you can see there, he's literally just holding on. If you imagine if this was in the wild, this is the first meal that's come by in some months, he's not going to want to let go of it. It would take something serious to upset him now. Now, as for sexes, we're saying a him. As for sexes, we don't know what they are. All we know is that they are really, really quite special. They are a fabulously interesting spider. Now, unfortunately, now that we've actually fed them, we won't see them bury themselves, which is quite a comical thing when we see them actually cover themselves over. And another thing that they're capable of doing is actually changing their colour depending on what kind of sand they're on. So at the moment we've got them on a very, very light sand, almost like a golden sand. Now we've had them on before now where we've kept them on a clay-based material, which has very, very fine particles in it as well, and they've done equally well. But we do find that they do like this sort of stuff. And it's very easy for them to cover themselves up. I think that one is actually He crawled right over the top of that. You notice now that the roach is put up no fight whatsoever. This is how fast that venom is. And it's ideally suited for subduing other insects. So it works very, very quick. If you've ever watched the recluses, we've had brown recluses in the past, and with those, you put crickets and things into them, and they literally bite them. And within a matter of a few seconds, them crickets are completely subdued. And it's the same with these guys. It really does finish them off real fast. Very, very powerful. Now, as we were saying earlier on, although they've got a very strong venom, they're very reluctant, or it appears that they're very reluctant to actually try and bite. You never see a threat display from one of these guys. They just don't bother. All they want to do is run away and hide. So in terms of husbandry, they are very, very simple to look after. Very, very easy. No trouble at all. They really aren't. As long as you've got them in something that they can't climb out of, there is no problems at all. And these guys cannot climb a clear surface. They just can't do it. They've got no way of being able to actually manage to grip that glass or the plastic here. So they're very, very simple to look after in that respect. Now, another thing that's interesting is we've seen here, we've got a molt here. Now we could actually have a look at that, and we could sex that, so we know it come from this one. So what we'll do is we'll pop that back in there just for future reference, and we'll try and sex that. They're not the easiest things to do. Now, what we want to do now is eventually it would be nice if we can manage to get a pair, or every now and again some come up as well. We see them come up. If we can manage to get a pair together, we can try and breed them. These have only ever been bred a couple of times in captivity. They are very, very difficult, and they like it incredibly warm as well. So we've got them here. I mean, it's like 80 degrees in here, but these guys would really actually benefit from a localized heat just on them, where we can take it up into the 30s, and they would do well. In terms of an egg sac, they don't make a sac like our normal spiders. They actually make like a conical type disc, which is just silk, which is the only time I believe these guys use silk. They don't use it at any other time, but they use silk, and then what they do is they get the very, very fine particles of sand embedded in it, and they make this conical type structure, and that is where they keep the eggs. And then they then deposit that in the sand, and then they will stand guard for it and wait for it basically to hatch. There's very little been sort of done with them, so it's a very fascinating thing to actually try and learn a little bit more about them. And as you can see now, this is quite a big roach for this spider. That will feed him up now for the next 6 months or more. And this one, it's interesting how they sort of like become a little bit more maneuverable when they got a bit of food. And this one here is very active. Slightly smaller, this one. It'd be interesting to know whether it seems like her roach is getting smaller as we speak. So I wouldn't mind betting she's actually eating it while she's moving around with it. He or she, whatever it might be. Notice how delicate those legs are? So, so delicate. When you can look under them under a magnifying glass, you'll find that they're covered in very, very stiff bristles. Very, very... Oh, this one's off now. There you go. That one's going to settle down now. It's going to start eating. It's taking its food. See him in the middle. We'll move him down here. You can come up.
Just shadowing one up. You're better off taking him to you.
There we go. Absolutely fantastic. Very cool. Right. Well, that is our Sicarius, the six-eyed sand spider. They both had a nice meal. As we say, they won't need another one now for a good long time. That's going to set them up a treat. Absolutely perfect. And then we shall we'll pull them down again in a couple of months' time and have another go. They literally are the simplest things in the world to look after. Right, and this is basically all they need. Nice sand thing. One thing to mention is they don't need any water. So if these guys get damp, if there's any kind of dampness in the sand, anything like that, for any prolonged length of time, it will in fact kill them off. They do not like it. They need to be kept absolutely dry at all times. So all of their fluid is coming through on their food, which is quite a fascinating thing when you consider how infrequently these eat in the wild. And they're out in the baking hot sun as well. I mean, it's just an incredible piece of engineering. A spider that can put up with such harsh conditions and literally, I mean, it might go a year without food. It's fantastic. Absolutely awesome. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed having a look at those. They really are quite special. And we are guilty of not showing enough of them. I think we'll have to get them out again in the future. They really are rather cool. Right then. If anyone's got any questions about them, put them down in the comments. Don't forget, hit the like button. Must keep hitting that like button. It really, really helps us out. It's a marvellous thing to do. And again, don't forget, be calm, be gentle, and love your spider. And I'll see you soon, guys.